Among the fine arts, architecture has a particular power to foster community. That is as true at the scale of a family home as it is of a large city. Older, single-religion societies often expressed their culture's identities through monumental religious buildings. Think of the Acropolis, Notre Dame in Paris, or Mexico City's Zócalo. But this idea does not work in the democratic multiculture of the United States. Here, it is often the public library that takes on this role. Or in the case of Philadelphia, it's the Art Museum. No Pennsylvania building rivals the museum's power to shape the public domain. Nationally and internationally, it is instantly recognized as Philadelphia's iconic identifier. It presides over the city's foremost gathering place, a place of civic meaning to all citizens, regardless of their interest in art. A hallmark of the museum, and its most famous attraction, the Rocky Steps, hosts a steady stream of visitors reenacting the triumph of the city's favorite fictional son. Beyond this cinematic moment, the museum is the backdrop for communal recreations, celebration, commemoration, protests, and occasionally even worship. It's a reminder of architecture's expressive power, of its ability to touch large and highly diverse communities, and it confirms architecture's status among the fine arts. The museum is a brilliant urbanistic move as it capstones the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. This civic boulevard was boldly carved from William Penn's grayly egalitarian street grid, bringing Baroque grandeur to pragmatic Philadelphia. It culminates in monumental stairs ascending a hill once known as Fair Mount. Rivaling Rome's Spanish steps, these exceed them in grandeur and social revelry, while bookending Philadelphia's somber City Hall. Here, architecture and landscape design have definitively de-Quakerized Philadelphia's urban fabric.
The Philadelphia Museum of Art was long in the making, and it was part of an even longer project, the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. That great City Beautiful Boulevard and the majestic tawny temple, which was nicknamed the Greek Garage by a critic who intended it as a slur, are proof that compelling artistic ideas can attract and retain broad public support, and also catalyze artistic collaboration. The museum, in particular, was a Jazz Age ensemble performance. The Parkway had been the great dream of Philadelphians starting right after the Civil War. The unforgettable vision of an arrow-straight connector between the gigantic curvilinear naturalism of Fairmount Park and the gridded rationality of the world's greatest industrial metropolis. The Parkway was a project of modernization, replacing a young but rapidly obsoleted industrial zone with a boulevard of commerce and culture, a prescient roadway to a post-industrial future. After decades of agitation, demolitions began in 1907, and the roadway opened in 1918, but the first public building, the Free Library, did not open until 1927. The Art Museum came next, in 1928. Commissioned in 1911, the museum was created by a difficult-to-parse collaboration between Horace Trumbauer and the partners Charles Borey and Clarence Zanzinger. Trumbauer and Zanzinger were notoriously hostile to each other, refusing, it was said, even to speak. Their large offices worked anonymously and began to develop their ideas separately. But Trumbauer got to present the first design to the art jury and to the press. This was almost surely the work of his chief designer, Julian Abel, the first African-American graduate of Penn's architecture program. Abel's talents were widely recognized at the time by Philadelphia architects and architectural clients, although Trumbauer did not celebrate him publicly. Race was surely a factor in this, but it was not the custom at that time in any office to acknowledge any individual contributions. The first design, looking more like a country house than a museum, was received but not approved by the art jury. And with the city not yet putting any money into the project, the two firms continued to work on separate designs. Two recent Penn graduates, 1913 classmates, took the lead in both. In Trumbauer's office, Howell Lewis Shea created a design that could be built in phases, starting with a slender two-story building facing the Parkway. It stretched its facade down the face of the cliff to a street-level lobby. William Pope Barney, working for Zanzinger, gathered quasi-independent buildings around a court of honor. Here, too, elevators would descend to the Parkway. Street-level access would also be a feature of the final design, the great vaulted tunnel that has just reopened. In the spring of 1915, with money at last in hand, the city demanded a single design in just 3 weeks. Shea created the compromise, essentially welding together the separate pavilions of Barney's plan. This was approved by the art jury, and at Christmas time in 1915, an enormous model went on display in City Hall courtyard. By the time construction began in 1919, Barney and Shea were working elsewhere, and preparation of the construction documents was entrusted to the Trumbauer office and Abel, who also drew these lively perspectives. But we should not subscribe to the romantic notion that these younger men made all the important design decisions. It was under Charles Borey's direction that a gray limestone building was transformed into golden yellow, the color of Mankato and Kasota dolomite. Moreover, it was Borey who hired color consultant Leon Solon, who designed the building's colorful terracotta ornament, and sculptor Paul Genuine, whose polychromatic Western civilization was to be the first part of a complete sculptural program. The jazzy result deserves to be called Art Deco classicism.
Or we might playfully call this Jazz Age neoclassicism, with a nod to the seemingly improvised ensemble of architects, planners, and landscape architects who brought it about. This contrasts with other early 20th century cultural buildings that almost invariably clothed themselves in formal academic styles, and often in the neoclassical. History tells us that the great Greek temples were originally painted in polychrome and later weathered to bare white marble. So, white became the standard neoclassical practice. Pristine purity conveyed serenity, stability, and strength. The Philadelphia Museum sets aside this near-universal precedent. Its jazzier palette is richly colored, lively, and profoundly artistic. Golden Mankato stone forms the canvas for colorful roofs, cornices, triglyphs, and copper griffins. One pediment is adorned with a massive polychrome frieze of allegorical nudes. Others remain bare red brick as if beckoning later completion by future artists. Departing from neoclassical convention, the building is as refreshing as any contemporaneous early modern work. Most simply put, it is full of life, and it reeks of artistry. Architecture as a lively art can benefit greatly from a curated diversity of designers, as the museum's origin stories attests. The Philadelphia Museum of Art, as a living institution, continues its diverse curation of serious public architecture. Over the last 25 years, they have not rested on their laurels, undertaking a bold set of construction, restoration, and renovation projects. The late 1990s saw an ambitious restoration of the 1928 building's exterior and Great Hall, and the programming effort that set the pattern for future expansion. In 2007, Zanziger Borey and Muderi's neighboring Fidelity Mutual Insurance building was restored and enlarged, creating the now Perelman Building, a venue for exhibition, curation, and research. Then, in 2010, came what is possibly the world's most cultured parking structure. Clothed in landscape and capped by the Anne Darnancourt Sculpture Garden, this boldly discreet non-building thoroughly belies its 440-car capacity. Frank Gehry's recent core project also slyly disguises what it accomplishes. He set aside his stylistic signature to deftly tuck new curatorial, infrastructure space, and galleries into and under the historic museum. One of the historic building's most idiosyncratic features is an almost Piranesian undercroft, the vaulted walkway, which was originally created to spare visitors from climbing the front portico's 72 steps. It had long been relegated to use as a service entrance. Almost archaeologically, the project brought this entrance back to light, while making it the key to reopening the building's heart. Radically clarified circulation and natural light have unclogged the museum's arteries, as Gehry would say. But the museum refers to these changes as a mere core project, implying the future will bring new opportunities for architecture to foster public accessibility, inclusivity, and delight. Delight is a word Vitruvius used 2,100 years ago to define architecture, along with firmness and commodity. The Philadelphia Museum of Art is truly a timeless example of what he meant. AIA Pennsylvania takes great pleasure in recognizing this extraordinary building. We honor the museum for its dedication to architectural excellence. We revere the magnitude of its impact on civic life. Looking to the future, we celebrate its commitment to expanding access and to art and architecture's ability to transcend societal differences in favor of shared civic values.